life that got you twisted. Things getting sideways. It's time to unfuck it. The Unfuck It Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Unfuck It Podcast, where we talk about things happening in the world that either are awesome or are fucked. Try to tell the difference between the two, and the things that are fucked, we want to try to figure out if we can fix them. So, as always, I'm Dwane Lay, sitting here in the moderator's chair as we get to it. And over to the side, my lovely and talented co-host, Crystal Lay. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm getting to talk with people that I like. It's Friday. I think it's Friday. And yeah.
Well, you can't give away too much because we don't know when this will air, right? So yes, we're recording on a Friday. We're recording on the Friday right after the Clayface trailer came out, which is very exciting stuff. But our guest today, sitting in the middle row, on my screen anyway, is our good friend, Stephen Rothberg. Stephen, would you like to introduce yourself to anybody who might be hanging out?
Cool. Hey, Crystal, Dwane, pleasure to meet with you. I'm the founder of College Recruiter job search site. It's an early career site. We're in dozens of countries. We help about 1.5 million, mostly young adults, find jobs while they're in school or graduated anytime within the last 5 years.
Right on. So while many people would come in and say, "What's good, man? How are things?" We go different directions. Like, "What's fucked, man? How are things?"
Well, one of the things that's been bugging me a lot, and I'm really glad that we can talk about it, and I'm hoping that Crystal's going to be able to say, well, I get what you're saying, but you're wrong, and here's why.
She will have no problem finding a way to say that.
Because then I'm going to learn, and maybe I can get past this obsession. I love the idea of ATS and other software that scores, ranks, matches candidates, especially in a high volume kind of situation, so that recruiters can spend more time with the candidates that are more likely to be a good fit. And the candidates that aren't likely to be a good fit, maybe they can even get rejected right away more quickly. They can move on and they can find better jobs. My beef with these systems is that the science backing them up, I think it has all the validity of a really good horoscope.
Wait. Hey, I just want to make sure I understand. Are you throwing shade at astrology right now?
As an Aries, I would say yes. No, in all seriousness, I strongly believe that some of these systems work really, really well. Mm-hmm. And I strongly believe that some of these systems work really, really poorly. I also strongly believe that we don't know which are which.
Mm-hmm. We won't ask you to name names. I mean, you can if you want, but we won't ask you to do that because people get touchy about, like, when we tell them, your software doesn't actually work.
Yeah, and it's not about the system, and it's not about the software working or not working. It's about knowing if it works. I would really love to see actually scientifically validated studies that demonstrate that System A performs well, maybe in certain roles, certain geographies, and System B doesn't. I want A to win the budget. I want B to go out of business.
So I can't speak to specific systems. I mean, I could. I'm not going to because I don't want to get sued.
Yeah.
And, there's that. But I will say, this is one of those few times that I'm going to say, it's not a right or wrong thing. Directionally, I think you're right. I think there's a nuance to this that gets missed. It's really not about is it efficiency or quality, which I think is what we talked about in pre-show. You're like, I think they say they're using it for quality, but really it's an efficiency gain. And so, are they being honest with themselves maybe about why they're using it? And I don't think that they're lying to themselves or others about the purpose being quality. I think it's really more that AI is introduced with the intention of improving quality under that language, right? But the way that it's operationally implemented and optimized is around efficiency. And that's because efficiency is something that it's objective, right? We can objectively measure. Did this work? Did it not? Like you said, System A, System B, Process A, Process B. It's really easy to tell, was this successful? Quality is subjective, right? So what is quality to me may not be quality to you, right, may not be to hiring manager C, right? And so that's a little harder to define. It's harder to standardize the evidence and the criteria around. And so I think we default back to operational efficiency because it's what we know, it's what we can prove, and it's what we can reasonably do in with speed. Right. Like to Dwayne's point in pre-show, like he talked about speed. And while his was like, you can pick two.
It's good, fast, cheap. Pick two. Yep.
Yeah. So while that was what he was talking about, the reality is in today's climate, and I would argue for the last 30, 40 years, companies, organizations, departments have been pushed to show returns for the things that they do, for the changes that they make, for the things they invest in, really too quickly. Probably more so than what's responsible at times, because they've got to be able to show that it was worth the money that they invested or the disruption that this change caused. So there's some interesting research around this. HBR put something out around a 3-year study that they did on AI efficiency in hiring. And what it showed was that AI systems standardize evaluation criteria, they reduce variability in decisions, and they increase throughput and speed. So I don't think any of us would argue a lot of that's efficiency based, right?
100%.
But it's also quality based.
100%.
Right. So that's where I'm like, that's where that nuance comes in, right? Like it's not either or, it's both. You see the efficiency gains first, but the quality is still there because if you're able to, make better decisions, increase that throughput, reduce the variability, reduce the variance in why you made decision A versus decision B, what good looks like, maybe reduce the bias, which most studies show that AI does do that, but it also will reinforce existing bias, which is why I'm hesitating just a little bit, right? So if you can do those things, I think there's an argument that inevitably quality will improve.
I agree 100%. And if I might, just to kind of build on part of what you said, and you kind of touched on it a few times, Crystal, but I think it's really important. If the speed is improved, like let's just take that issue alone. It's simple, right? Rather than taking 2 weeks to review somebody's resume, you've now taken 2 nanoseconds. Mm-hmm. Rather than taking 6 weeks to hire, you take 6 days. I think that there's a huge opportunity there to improve your quality of hire because you're not going to lose the best qualified candidates. If you're McDonald's and somebody walks in and they're applying to be a cashier, I guarantee you they've applied to be a cashier in 10 other places. And if you take 3 weeks to get back to them, they have already been working someplace else for 2 weeks. And so you're just not going to hire them. Mm-hmm. Because of that, you have to go deeper into that pickle barrel. You're going to end up hiring people who aren't as qualified because your number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 choices are gone. So I absolutely see the speed and the use of AI ranking systems as naturally being complementary, driving some of the quality. My issue isn't about whether these systems work or not. My issue is more just about the language that some employers, not all, some employers use to justify their use of the systems. And what they say is that by using the AI, we use the AI systems because it results in better hiring. And I think that is one of the benefits, but I think at the end of the day, the driving force is really about saving money. And sure. I don't think that's a problem. I don't see that it's a bad thing for employers to say that our ROI is better, that we can speed up our time to hire. I mean, there are a lot of benefits, but I don't think that quality trumps all of them.
I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here for a minute, and then
Please.
I want to hit on the.
It's your show. What am I going to say? Yeah. No.
I mean, yes, you could. You're the guest. But
true. I could say it. It wouldn't mean anything.
I do want to come back to quality as a proxy metric. So, guys, don't let me forget about that. Mm-hmm. But I will say that I think the idea of we introduced AI as a cost saving measurement is, man, that's a fool's errand. And it is a lie. I think that if that's what's being said, it's a lie you're telling yourself, because maybe in the long term, that's going to give you cost savings. But in the first few years, it is absolutely not. You have to, one, change all of your systems and processes to be able to adjust and adopt to this new system that you, by the way, also paid for. And so you have to factor that in. That's usually not a cost savings in and of itself. The adoption of that, the training around that, the use of that, like getting your candidate experience back up to snuff. When you're implementing AI, you've got very brittle candidate trust. Before you implemented the AI, that could potentially be, if you're a B2C organization particularly, impacting your bottom line revenue as a company if that experience is poor. So there's a whole lot of things that can cost, that have hidden costs around there, that make it really difficult to see true, like, all-in savings in the first few years.
While that's probably, I just wanted to challenge a little bit there, like, that doesn't mean that it's not how it's being sold.
Oh, no,
right?
That's fair.
It's factual, but when you've got nobody's implementing AI because it's going to cost more, right? It's sold as a cost reduction. Oh, it's going to be less expensive. It's going to be faster, fewer people, all those things. That's how it gets sold. You're right. There's a whole lot of stuff that gets left out of that conversation. But when the expectations being set coming in are, it's going to be more effective, more efficient, and therefore less expensive for you as an organization to run this way. Like, we are, like, from jump setting up a disappointment to come down that barrel.
If that's the conversation that's being had, for sure. I actually appreciate some of our clients recognize that upfront it is more expensive, and without us even having, like, that's not we're amazing, and so we're telling our clients, like, I mean, we have the benefit. I mean, sure, but we have the benefit of working with companies that are pretty far along the AI maturity model, so they already know that this is not, like, you don't do it for the upfront cost savings because it's largely not there. You're doing it for the long-term efficiency gains and the long-term ability to put your humans into deeper value work, right? So, like, the companies we're working with aren't even using it as a way to thin out their people. And I know that's the thing that gets talked about a lot. It's like, oh, it's going to replace people. It's there to, yeah, it's going to replace some jobs. But it's not that it's replacing those people. It's those people get moved into other roles and other work that have more meaning for the organization, for mature organizations. For immature organizations, yep, they're going to pull the Salesforce? Was it Salesforce?
Yeah.
Was it Oracle? Who was it that was like, we're going to replace everybody with bots? And then they're like,
there's been more than one.
Oh, that was the Swedish payday company, the Klarna.
Oh, no,
I think
this is a U.S.-based company.
But yeah, Salesforce did that.
Yep.
I mean, Meta just laid off, and Box, and there are a whole lot of organizations that will say that it's AI, and AI is helping us get rid of 3,000 people, 10,000 people, 50,000 people. And I do think there are some examples that we could all find pretty easily.
Well, the ones that have done it have hired them back, is my point.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's easy for executives to point the finger at AI rather than the loss of a big contract, a product that didn't go well, changing macroeconomic, and they're just
executive bonuses, executive.
Yeah, I was like,
whatever.
the stuff they've been doing forever. It's coming up to the end of a fiscal, and we need to be able to show a different bottom line number. Let's lay off a bunch of people and hire them back. Like,
totally,
this is nothing new. But I mean, look, AI is going to change the way we work. That said, mature organizations aren't looking at this as like, we're doing it as a cost-saving measure today, or really a cost-saving measure from just a pure dollar and cents. It's we spend a lot of time, resources, money, energy, people, resources, all of the things on very low value things that should be handled by machines, that should be handled by computing programs, because there are other things that we don't get to because we're stuck in these low level, high cognitive calorie tasks, right? And so that I think is a really good sell and should be the sell that organizations are making. If you're having a cost savings argument around AI right now as a justification for implementing AI, like as an executive, I'm just telling you, like, you better be careful about how you forecast that, or you better have an up-to-date resume, right? Because you're not going to be able to show that as well. Getting back to, I think, your earlier point, though, like quality becomes this scapegoat and proxy metric. Right. So most AI systems define quality in a kind of interesting way as a pattern matching. Right. So pattern matching against historical hires, which is why we have the inherent bias problem. Right. Resume signals, keyword type things. Right. Assessment scores. So that's not quality. Right. Those are proxy signals, and it creates this loop where you're not actually improving quality as an output of work, but rather as an output of historical past hiring behavior, right? And that is a real slippery slope. You're going to replicate whatever you previously achieved or defined as quality, not necessarily whatever is going to get you to your next phase of growth within the business.
Yeah. So let me be a little bit more specific, and I'm thinking to some of the conversations that I've had over the last couple of months with TA leaders who have implemented these systems and are now trying to sort of justify their use in light of some of the big lawsuits and regulatory actions.
Sure.
You know, the Workday, iSIMS, et cetera. Those now, who knows how those are going to go? Is it legal? Is it not legal? But it's certainly bad PR. You know, even if these organizations win, in that sense, they're going to lose that. What some of these TA leaders have said is that their use of the ranking, scoring, matching software provided by their ATS or other HR tech vendors, job boards, et cetera, is going to result in them having a higher quality workforce. And when they talk about quality, what they're talking about is productivity. And so the question that I ask is, how do you know that?
Right.
And in some environments, it's actually pretty easy, right? So think warehouse, think customer service. You can do a pretty good job of objectively measuring the productivity of your warehouse pickers, you know, the people who pick stuff off the shelves and whatever. If you're on a production line, you know, kind of an atmosphere, which those warehouses pretty much are, you can objectively measure that. If you're hiring one marketing associate a year, really hard to do that.
Yeah.
But what I would love to see is some of these high volume organizations, you know, that a FedEx, a UPS, an Amazon that hire thousands and thousands and thousands of people, run these systems in parallel to their current process and essentially ignore the signals that they would be getting from the AI system and continue to hire the way they have been. And then a year from now, kind of look back. If we had hired the people that the AI told us to hire and not hired the people that the AI had told us not to hire, what would our workforce look like? Would those people actually be the more productive? I would love to see a double-blind study where neither the candidate nor the hiring manager knows what the score is, and then 6 months or a year down the line, is that person still with us? Are they in the same role? Have there been disciplinary actions? Have they been promoted? Are they actually picking items off the shelf faster than the people that the AI said scored lowly? And then I think we can infer from that the same type of smarts that the AI has in more subjective, more maybe knowledge-based environments, accounting, legal, sales. Well, sales, actually, you can look at the sales numbers.
Couldn't you?
Again, I really believe that some of these systems work exceptionally well, but we just don't know it. And that's part of my frustration. I'm not anti-scoring. What I'm anti is turning this technology into our generation's vitamins. If vitamins worked so well, why aren't there studies showing it? And if there
Vitamins
are studies,
do work well. There are studies showing it. They just aren't the key to making it to 113, right? Like it's there. The problem is not, and I think this goes back to AI, like not to derail on vitamins, right? But like the problem isn't, is it good or is it bad? Vitamins are good for you. And we all have a certain level of need of vitamins. Ideally, we get it through the food we eat. When we don't eat the right food, we need to take vitamin supplements, right? So now let's take that same thing to hiring. You know, like HR tech, TA tech, whatever it is, like it's great. Ideally, we set up the right stack and we can do all of the things that we need to do. When we don't, we need to have other things come in and help us. And quite frankly, had we all been better stewards of TA technology over the last 20 years, you know, there's some question of would we be exactly where we are right now in the AI of all the things? Maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't. That's a different show. But it's not, is this good or is this bad? It's why do we need it? To what degree do we need it? And how do we use it? What should we expect to get out of it? Sorry.
Yeah.
So one of the things we talked about, I love the idea of doing a double-blind study, but nobody's going to do that with their company, right? Nobody's going to say we're going to intentionally hire people. Well, if you're running the study, you could say like we're going to intentionally like do some of these things. But you know what we could do is we could take those employment records of people we've hired over the last 3 years and run them through the AI as they came to us. Like we should still have all of that data, right? Run them through as they came to us and then look at their performance. Look at how many pips were there, how many performance issues were there. We may not be able to do it like live, right, where it's going, but we still have the data to go back and validate it. And I don't know that I've seen anybody do that.
So let me push back. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think there's another aspect of that.
Okay.
What you're talking about there has, I think, a lot of promise. There's a lot of good stuff there, but it only answers the question about the people you hired.
Right.
It doesn't answer the question about the people you didn't hire. And that's one of the fundamental problems with these systems is that you can only validate the people that you ended up hiring. What I'm suggesting is an employer that hires hundreds and thousands of people into the same role in a bunch of different locations. Again, a UPS, a FedEx, an Amazon kind of organization.
Yeah.
That they run it in parallel for 3 months, 6 months, a year. So I'm not asking them to like change their hiring. Actually, what I'm asking them to do is delay the change in how they hire so that they can then see the AI might tell them, do not hire Dwane, instead hire Crystal. Right?
So you're saying run both systems at the same time in different areas.
Correct.
Right. But I think
if I was like a TA leader at a big organization and somebody's talking about bringing in a big piece of new technology that's really going to change who I hire, I would want to know, does it actually work? How do you know it actually works? And the bill of goods that a lot of the vendors have sold us on is trust us. It works better. Just look at what we've trained it on are your best performers from the past 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And I do think there's validity there, but it doesn't get trained at all on the people that you haven't hired. So how do we know that the people that we haven't hired would have been of lower quality, would not have been as productive? I just think we aren't being honest with ourselves about the lack of knowledge in that area.
So, but I think that if we think about like people's fit, generally speaking, as a standard distribution, right? If you're hiring thousands of people every month, right? Instead of running them in parallel for 3 months, let me just look back at the last 3 months where I didn't have this tool. And you can do some validation by saying, run all of those people through that we hired and see how they scored. And now the danger is everybody we hired scored really highly on this algorithm, because then my thought is like, great, I don't need it, right? So your assumption is we're not just hiring the best people already. So if that's true, then you'll have a distribution of those scores, and I can still run that model and say, how would you have scored these people? Now let me look at their performance and see, are you really scoring my high performers based on the data for when they applied? Are they scoring highly on your algorithm?
Yeah, the problem is you never are actually measuring the people you reject. Right. And so
but my point is, if you've got a big enough population, like, you're going to have those people in there.
No, you won't. You won't have the people that you reject. You will only have the people that you hired. And so you're only validating within the group of people that you chose. Now, you could look and say, like, which process chooses better people? Sure, it'll tell you that. But I think it misses Stephen's point of, like, how do you know that you chose the best people? Right. And how do you know that the people that you rejected weren't actually better than the people that you chose? And it can't tell you that because it can't measure that. You're not actually measuring whether the system finds the best candidates. You're measuring whether the people you already selected perform adequately. And that is important. It's just not the full picture.
Yeah. I don't think you know that until you run that data, though, because, again, if you're already hiring the best people, why do you need the algorithm? So you have to assume,
well, you don't know that you're hiring the best people, and that's the point.
Hang on. From a needs perspective, you have to assume you're not already hiring the best people, right? That their people are getting in that aren't the best fit, right? You have to assume that. Otherwise, there's no reason to look at the tool other than it's cheaper, right? Which we just said we don't want to buy on that, right? So if you assume that some of those people are in there, or even within that population, you can look at it and say, which of these people would you have recommended we hire? Now let me look at the performance of these different groups. And you're right, it's not everybody, but at least it'd be a proof point that, yep, it is pointing us towards the best people, even within the limited set. Like, I would want to do that before I use any tool to go live. I want to know, can you pick out the best people with that retroactive look?
How are you measuring the performance of the people you never hired?
I'm not. I'm using the population I have. And while it's not perfect, I think it's a much more palatable answer than run it in parallel and let's find out
why.
Why? Because I already hired all those people. That money, that's sunk cost. I already hired all those people, and I've got performance metrics on them.
So I think, Dwane, what you're saying is, please correct me if I'm wrong.
I will.
It's an and even if I'm not wrong, please correct me, because that'll be fun.
That's what you said you wanted, right? Somebody can go, no, you're wrong about all these things. Don't worry about it.
Truly, I love being proven wrong. I'm proven wrong a lot of times every day. How else do I learn? If I was born knowing everything and was always right, it's like,
yeah.
I mean,
trust
anyway,
me, it is not
again, another podcast for another day. I think the expression that I like to use, I certainly didn't invent it, but I shamelessly ripped it off, is that perfection is the enemy of progress. Mm-hmm. And I think what you're suggesting, Dwane, is not that, your study, your approach is the be all to end all. Like, it's not like, let's just look back at the last 3 years of hiring, see if the results are what we want them to be. And if they are, we are good, and we will never look at, validate this or question this again. I'm not hearing that. What I am hearing is, at a minimum, we should be doing that. The issue of hiring in parallel and doing an A/B test is, I think, a ridiculous thing to ask an organization that is hiring a relatively small number of people. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a very easy thing to ask of very large organizations that are hiring 1,000 people a month into the same role. You could take 100 of those and just say, we're going to use our old hiring method, and the other 900, we're going to do our new one. So I'm not asking organizations to deliberately hire people that they believe are poorly qualified. Mm-hmm. I'm asking them to continue to hire the way they have been, because I think we hire enough people, you're probably going to have some high performers, some medium performers, and some low performers in there. And then the AI sits alongside that. And then 6 months from now or whatever, you can kind of look back and say, okay, the AI said Crystal was really highly rated, meaning she's likely to be one of our most productive employees. What did she actually perform at? Mm-hmm. How did she actually perform? And Dwane, you and I both know, kick ass, right?
Of course, yeah.
So that she's going to validate the software is going to validate that hire, or it's going to come out well. And then there'll be bozos, like me, who might like rank well in the AI, but show up to work and it's like, oh my God, we can't get this guy out the door fast enough. But no, in all seriousness, again, it's one of the things that I love about these systems is the speed that is getting people to that finish line. Are we going to hire you? Or are we not going to hire you? To their start date far faster. If that was the only benefit, I would be fine with that. I think that would just lead to so many positives for so many people. And I don't think that's the only benefit. I think there are loads of other benefits.
And I don't think that would be one of the benefits.
Okay.
I think what you're likely to see is what we see over and over again, which is that almost analysis paralysis of like, oh, okay, I got better candidates faster. Now give me more.
Oh, interesting.
Now give me more.
That's the reality that you're seeing with your clients. Is that what you're saying?
It's not just my clients. I see it and have these conversations all of the time with organizations across the world where they're like, we're so stuck with hiring managers that are worried about making bad decisions, that are concerned that they're not seeing the best and the brightest out there, that know that they're going to be judged off the teams that they build. So they constantly want more. And that's what's delaying the process more than anything. So
is this the fear of missing out kind of thing where
I
don't know who might apply tomorrow, so I need to wait for that person to apply, but in the meantime that the fantastic candidate that applied last week has already moved on because
So TA teams are being asked to keep people warm for inordinate amounts of time, right? You're seeing the time lengthen. And you're also seeing the number of candidates. This is a conversation that we were having with Indeed recently, like the number of candidates per role, even for something as simple as a warehouse position, might be 38 to, 1 for interview, right? 38 candidates for every one person going to interview, not because 37 weren't qualified, but it's just that many. They're like, well, maybe there's something better. Keep getting more, right? And that's incredibly expensive. So my concern is like, as we won't actually speed up the time to hire, we'll just speed up the time to get the slate in front of a hiring manager who will then say, cool, now we can get more because look how quick we got these. We have time.
Interesting.
You speed up the time to reject.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a common conversation in candidates too.
Speeding up the time to reject is not a bad thing. Right. Right. I mean, if I'm applying to work at, GBS and you guys see my resume come in and you're like, oh, this is not a good fit at all. Wouldn't I rather hear that quickly than
I think the problem is when they get that response after 30 seconds.
How quickly, I agree, Crystal. Like that may be at the end of the day, that may be the Mobley workday issue. Yeah. Is that Mobley got rejected maybe too quickly. And I don't know, and I don't know if anybody will ever really know what happened there, but it could simply be that at 2 a.m. when you apply and you get a rejection at 2 a.m. plus 10 seconds, and I'm exaggerating how fast it took, that is not a good thing. Right. And I have heard from a number of the organizations, probably some of them are clients of yours and ours, that that decision, that rejection decision is essentially instantaneous, but they hold on to it for 2 days or 3 days or 4 days because it sits better with the candidate. It's still fast enough. They can still kind of move on and know that other job offer that's out there is the one that they should go with. You're not just like putting them into a black hole or 3 years from now rejecting them. And I hear of that too. So the faster
is a sweetheart.
There is. And I'm glad that organizations, regardless of what their motives are, if they don't want to have the angry candidate, they don't want the threat of violence, they don't want why did you reject me? Whether the motives are selfish or not, I think it's better for both to have that sweet spot. 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, something along those lines.
2 days seems to be the best. Like anything less than 24 hours is like, oh, the machine did it. Between 24 and 48, there's a general belief like, oh, it might have been a person, right? Right around 2 to, even to 3 days, it's like, oh, okay, our recruiter looked at this because it took so long, right? So, but then what comes back to you is important too. If it's the automated, thank you for your interest in our organization. We have had a plethora of applicants or we're fortunate to have so many people apply for this role that we've decided that there are just better fits for the, da, da, da. Just don't. Like, what they want is like, hey, we appreciate that you applied. We're not going with you at this time. If you could give them a reason, which often you can't, but if you could say things like, the skills and qualifications that you have, while impressive, don't closely enough align to this position. You were short on experience. You didn't have, at least 75% of the required, criteria, whatever it was. Think we got it wrong. Here's how you can challenge it. Now, that's going back to the speed and efficiency piece, right? Like, if your goal in this is to become more efficient and faster, that here's how you can challenge it piece will slow that back down. But it will make your hiring process seem fairer. It will increase your candidate trust in your decisions. And ultimately, the way that we're wired as people, once someone's rejected, most of us want to reflexively argue it, but don't follow through with it, right? So you're not going to get this like overwhelming response of people going, you're wrong, right? You'll probably get like 10 to 12, maybe 15% of those rejections saying like, could you review? Could you human review? But if you have AI doing all of the reviews to begin with, or even 75% of the reviews to begin with, then that should free up a fair amount of bandwidth to handle those 10 to 15%. So like listening to you both talk about the retroactive, review of candidates or hires rather to see like what was productive and what worked versus the double blind or in parallel study. And Dwane, you can't run a double blind hiring study. It's not legal for one. But not in actual employment. You can do it in an education environment, but not an employer is not allowed.
Are you trying to say people aren't like working real jobs? Is that what you just said? As a professor, I'm offended, ma'am.
That is not what I said.
I'm telling your mom.
What I also picked up on, Dwane, was Crystal saying that she's sitting here listening to the two of us.
Yeah, we know.
And I do think we should express our sympathy for having put her into that position.
No, it's all good. But like,
it's okay.
If I put on my TA leader hat, like I'd almost think about this in phases. So I don't know that it's either or. I think it's both. Like phase one is what Dwane described, that sanity check of the model that we have. Is it working? Yeah. Phase two is where it gets, to me, a little more interesting with what Stephen's describing of that in parallel test to see like, okay, is what we're looking at doing actually going to improve hiring outcomes? And it needs to be done in a way that's doable, right? So you don't have to do it across your entire company, like you said. You can do it in one business unit. You can do it in one role, one family that maybe sits across multiple regions so that you can understand some of the contextual nuance that happens across your organization, right? You can do it in one geography, but you have to understand that like there are cultural norms that might change your outputs once you go away, right? But Group A hires the way you always have. Group B uses that new system. And then you've created something where you really don't typically have in TA technology adoption, which is a before and after. I don't know if I froze and if you got all that, but you have a comparison basically, right? So if you're going to do that though, I think there has to be specific and layered check-ins, right? So like 0 to 60 days, what you really need to be looking at is that time to productivity. What is the ramp speed of those hires out of Group A and Group B? What is the training completion rate out of Group A and Group B? And then you have to look at midterm range. So like when you're doing these kind of in parallel tests, like this is not a 90-day thing. This is like ideally a 24-month thing, which will drive probably all TA and in HR tech vendors nuts because I'm saying delay your long-term decision for 2 years. But do, right? So then midterm, you can look at manager performance ratings with calibration around, okay, what happened when they came in? How close were they really? What additional training did we need to give, right? What is that retention rate looking like? What are the internal mobility signals that we receive from them once they're in? Were they quiet quitters that like took this job and, or maybe side hustling, or were they all in, right? Were they taking advantage of the benefits that were offered to them, the learning things, all of those things? And then longer term, like what's those promotion rates out of group A versus group B? Right? What are the hypo identifications out of each group? What were the team contributions out of each group? What were the impact metrics on revenue? Right? And that's where you can make decisions on your process and your tech in a way that can truly say, this changes quality. I think before that, Stephen, that's why I was like, I don't think you're wrong. I think it's just really nuanced. The way that we buy tech lends itself to be able to discuss efficiency versus quality.
100%. What you're describing reminds me of what a lot of organizations will do if they're thinking of switching over from one accounting system to another, right? There are some good reasons for doing that, and there are some bad reasons for doing that. And there are going to be some unexpected consequences. You're going to find that some of your existing employees become much more productive. Some become much less productive. Is that necessarily a problem? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe the new accounting system vendor has sold you a bill of goods about how much faster you're going to be able to collect, and you actually find out that it's actually a lot slower, for one reason or another, right? The vendors sometimes lie. And sometimes
right? Like just the sales
Right. Wait, exactly. And sometimes it's just a generalization, but you fit into the exception. We've all been to the doctor's office where the doctor will say something like, well, with the symptoms that you're presenting with, normally the diagnosis is blah, blah, blah. Normally does not mean always.
Yeah. I actually talk about this a lot with family court, right? Like, so Dwane had a custody thing, right? And it was really funny for 10 years. I mean, it wasn't funny. It was actually horrible to live through. But in retrospect, it was a little funny. One of the things we'd consistently hear is like, this is not the way it's supposed to work. This is the worst we've ever seen. No one has ever had this happen before. And it's like, well, when you say that every single time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can't always be the exception. If there is always the exception happening, then you don't understand the rule.
That's actually the normal.
Yeah. Right. And I say that to kind of bring it back to like in predictive hiring is one of the few areas, TA is one of the few areas in business where we don't test before we scale. And it is fascinating to me because of the implications of hiring. Right? Every single bit of revenue that comes from a company is dependent on the hiring decisions that we make. And it is the only area where we operate like the complete effing Wild West. Like it's such a great conversation for like the unfuck it piece, because like it's truly fucked the way that we approach hiring, the way that we approach everything around it. We're like, oh my God, we're at the risk of making Workday mad. Like the Workday recruiting module was free for ages because it was broken. It was the add-on to be able to get them to buy all of the other stuff that they tested. Right.
Why not test the recruiting module too? Right. And eventually, yes, they did. Right. And that's good. And made, from what I've heard, some subtle and also some very what's the right word?
Acquisitions. No,
I was thinking about like the right word, overt or significant areas of improvement, and great. I mean, we should applaud all that.
No, for sure. There wasn't a dog on them. It really was.
No. It's just an example. I mean, there's something to be said.
It was more about the business. It was more about the fact that the business was like, oh yeah, sure, we'll take this thing that you're giving us for free because it doesn't work, because who cares? It's just recruiting.
Right. Like, well, and I'm the CFO, and it's not, hiring isn't my problem. Well, yeah, right. It is.
Figure it out. You've been doing it all this time. You'll figure it out.
Right. And so it's really interesting to me, like the idea of predictive validity and validity testing and predictive selection and, retrospective, result testing. This exists in every other function, but the one function where it probably makes the most sense to do it.
And horoscopes.
And of course.
And horoscopes.
Yeah. So this is all great, and I feel like we could do, because every time we talk to you, Stephen, we could sit and go for hours because you're smart.
As long as there's alcohol involved.
Well,
Yes.
and unfortunately, I mean, this is why it would be kind of podcast. But as we always say, if you blow on your cup, nobody knows if it's coffee.
And nobody asked me what's in my cup. We won't have no problems. It's coffee, by the way.
All right. So that being said, we get around to one of my favorite parts of the show, the go and fuck yourself piece. We have talked a lot about things that are broken, and you have been in this business long enough to know, like, there are things that were broken that got fixed. There are things you've changed about yourself that have now made things better. So give us an example of how did you unfuck yourself? What has made a difference in your world that you can share with people?
The biggest way that I think I unfucked myself professionally actually came from my personal life and then sort of bled into my professional life. About 15 years ago, my wife and I were meeting with a psychiatrist to help us with some parenting issues. And those issues are like 100% irrelevant to the conversation. But at one point, the psychiatrist kind of looks at me and she's like, well, you understand, you have ADHD. And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? I am like the most organized person I have ever met. I pride myself on that, of doing things efficiently in a very organized manner. And she's like, have you ever been tested? She's like looking at me and thinking I'm like BSing her. And it's like, so I took the test and it was like 25 things and I got like 24 out of 25. So congratulations, high achiever. The only one that I missed was because I misread the question. So I should have been 25 out of 25. It was actually a revelation. And then I really started to like think about like what causes me stress. Where do I feel like I'm always failing, that no matter what I do, I can't do it well? And why is that? And then I started to realize, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I do well, but it goes against my natural abilities. I'm playing to my weaknesses. I'm not playing to my strengths. That led me into the workplace. And there's a lot of stuff that I was doing as part of my everyday work, my responsibilities, the work that I was doing, saying to a team member, oh, you don't you do that, I'll do that. Really stupid. And when I started to realize, it's like, even if I can do something, even if I can do it well, I work with other people that's their strength. And it's all that same thing is my weakness. So why am I trying to push that boulder uphill? I should give that boulder to them and let them push it downhill. So that's mine.
Right on. That's great. That kind of self-awareness like makes a huge difference for people. I know several people who have been diagnosed like as adults with either ADHD or being on spectrum or whatever. And it always comes back to, it's like, it doesn't change who you are. It just changes how you cope, right? It changes how you adjust. So I've had that discussion with somebody, a doctor friend of ours, where I'm like, Crystal keeps telling me I'm ADHD. Do I need to get tested? And she was like, I mean, if you are, you figured out how to cope with it by now. You're probably fine. So, yeah. And it was like, but you're clearly not. You're the only sane person in that asylum. You're good.
That part never happened. I checked.
You weren't there. You don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of like, sitting around the Thanksgiving table and, you got 30 of your relatives there. And then there's always that one total asshole, right?
And if you don't know who the asshole is?
Exactly, Crystal. Yeah. If you're at that Thanksgiving dinner, you look around the 30 people and it's like, wow, there aren't any assholes here. Yes, there is. It's you.
It's you.
That's one of my favorite lines from Justified, which if you haven't watched it, you should, was Raylan saying, it's like, if you met an asshole, you just met an asshole. If you spent all day meeting assholes, you're the asshole. So it's the wit and wisdom of Raylan Givens. We should make a book out of that. All right. Well, this has been a ton of fun, and I can't wait to do it again, hopefully in person over drinks. So, Stephen, thank you so much for being here with us. Tell the folks who are watching, where do they find you? Where do they listen to you? And where can they catch up on what's good?
Sure, sounds good. LinkedIn, you can reach out, linkedin.com/in/Stephen, STEVEN Rothberg. Email me, Stephen@collegerecruiter.com. I'm also the co-host in a couple of podcasts, Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces, and the High Volume Hiring Podcast.
I think we're
Crystal
making a
Dwane,
short guest appearance on that show back at Breakfast.
you absolutely did, and you can see that on LinkedIn, YouTube, or any of your favorite movie theaters. Probably not that last one.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
No, but seriously, Crystal Dwane, thank you for the work you do. Thank you for having me as a guest.
Always.
Of
And you're
course.
welcome back
Thank you.
anytime.
Come back. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you for being here. Hope everybody enjoyed the show, and we will see you on the next episode.
It's time to fuck it. Thanks for tuning in, friends. Until next time, keep it real and unfuck it.